come over. He's new. He's never done one of these before. And so I would say
We'll call this meeting of the Committee of the Whole to order at 6:43. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Allen.
Here.
Mayor Murphy.
Here.
Mr. Miller.
here,
Mr. Doherty.
here,
Mr. Burchett.
here.
Mrs. Witt.
Here.
Ms. Marcus.
Here. We have the approval of minutes from our January 26th meeting. If there are no changes or corrections, they will be approved as they are. Hearing none, they are approved. Finance Director, do you have a report?
No report, thank you.
City Manager,
I have no items, thank you.
Mayor,
I have no report, thank you.
Law Director.
Thank you. I have one request. That's for an executive session with no business to follow at the end of this meeting for matters pertaining to employment of a public employee and compensation of a public employees.
I'll make
that motion.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Allen.
Yes.
Mrs. Witt.
Yes.
Mayor Murphy.
Yes,
Mr. Miller.
Yes,
Mr. Burchett.
yes.
Mr. Doherty.
Yes.
Ms. Marcus.
Yes. Clerk of Council.
I have no report, thank you.
Okay, we'll go into business. The first item is permission for ODOT guardrail work on State Route 741.
Yes, this is a completely ODOT driven project. It is to fix guardrail along 741, very close to Paper Trail Road. So the northern section of 741, just beyond North Lawn. And the city is known as the LPA. However, we have no features requested in this, so there is no cost to the city, and we just need legislation to allow for the consent to ODOT to do the work in the city. So if we can have legislation prepared, we would appreciate it.
Legislation.
Any questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Allen.
Yes.
Mrs. Witt.
Yes.
Mayor Murphy.
yes,
Mr. Burchett.
Yes,
Mr. Doherty.
Yes.
Mr. Miller.
yes.
Ms. Marcus.
Yes. The next item is delinquent income tax collection.
I can speak on that if you want. Yeah. So I had been speaking with, I believe, Mr. Buchek and Mr. DePorter have been having conversations about some of the delinquent income tax collections. Out of that came basically, I contacted the OAG section chief for collections and asked him if he could forward me their most recent contract, which would allow the city to engage the OAG to collect those delinquent income taxes. Had a very good conversation with him. Basically, what they informed me was they do not need to first have a judgment. There is a procedure whereby the delinquent tax or the person who owes the delinquent tax will get notices from the city. And then after a while, if it's not collected, it will be forwarded up to the OAG for collection. The OAG, it is no charge to the city. The OAG charges 10% to the person they're collecting the delinquent tax from. That's how they achieve their fee for the services. So I was advised no cost to the city. There is a high revised code that permits them to do the collection and collect the fee. So the request, and if the finance director or the city manager want to add anything, but I believe the request would be for legislation for the next meeting to authorize that agreement with the OAG's office.
So currently, we follow the code. The code requires 3 notices, and there has to be 30 days between each notice. So there is a length of time. There's a process where we try to contact the taxpayers. Often, when taxpayers get the first notice that they either failed to file or failed to pay, then they respond. So typically people respond. Then after the second notice, some more people respond. Then the third notice, there's a smaller batch of people that people or in businesses as well who have not responded. So then that group of taxpayers would then be moved on to the Attorney General's office. Right now, and historically, we've had to go through court to get a judgment on that. And the court process is a little tricky because, if people aren't responding, then our hands are kind of tied. And then also, we have all the facts. We have the, the letters that we've sent. We have the supporting documentation. So, if they want to work something out with us, I mean, we've given them, after the 3 letters, they have that at that point, it's well over 3 months to work something out with us to try to get something arranged. We do offer payment plans, and however, some people stop paying on this payment plan. So, that again is like, what, it's a little frustrating. Like, what do we do with that? Sometimes, so it would be very helpful.
Yeah.
It would speed up the process. And again, when we send out the initial notices, most of the people respond, or most of the taxpayers, I should say, respond, and it works. It's the group that we get to the 3rd notice. At that point, they're probably not going to respond at that point.
So I'll make a motion that we turn the delinquent income tax collection over to the state.
What we would need is legislation approving the agreement.
Legislation
Be prepared.
Yes.
prepared per the law director.
Any other questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Witt,
Yes.
Mr. Burchett,
Yes.
Mr. Darty,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mayor Murphy,
Yes.
Mrs. Allen,
Yes.
Ms. Marcus.
Yes. Next item is the grass mowing assessment.
Thank you. This is an item that we bring to the committee or twice a year, I should say. This request is to add 10 properties onto the property tax bills who have not paid for their grass mowing assessments from last year. The total is $3,988.87. The process is that council approves the assessments, and then we pass them on to the county auditor, and then the county auditor puts them onto the properties for the next billing. So the next billing will be in July of this year. And so this is just a request to forward this list of properties request for legislation to forward this list of properties to the county auditor.
Make a motion that we have the grass mowing assessments legislation prepared for that.
Any questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Mayor Murphy,
Yes.
Mrs. Allen,
Yes.
Mrs. Witt,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Burchett,
Yes.
Mr. Darty,
Yes.
Ms. Marcus.
Yes. The next item is the Marine Comprehensive Plan presentation and question and answer.
Hey, good evening, everybody. It's great to be here to talk about the Marine Comprehensive Plan, share a little bit about what the process is going to be. As we're really at the jumping off point. We're getting just started on the project, and kind of share a little bit working with staff. We thought we'd come and present this evening, just give you an overview of what the process is going to look like, timelines, some interesting things that we're finding out about Marine and how it's going to go. So without further ado, my name is Matthew O'Rourke. I am the Planning and Economic Development Group Leader at American Structure Point. So a little bit about my background, 15 years I worked in the public sector doing zoning, local planning, economic development initiatives. My catchphrase is I reviewed everything from a fence permit to a TIF deal, and pretty much everything in between. So that's kind of a little bit on my background, then joined the private sector and been doing this work ever since. If you're not 100% familiar with American Structure Point, we're a multidisciplinary engineering firm. I run our planning and economic development function, but we have all ranges of engineers, bridge, road, water, sewer, utilities, you name it, they're all there. And we actually work with those folks very closely. In fact, one of our vice presidents is here, Frank Oransky, who is one of those road engineers who we're all here to, they are all here to help lend some insight and some technical expertise to our process as we go through it. So that's a little bit about who we are and how we approach these projects. So just real quick, what we want to do this evening is kind of just give you an overview of the process, what we're going to be looking at, how we're going to be going about our work the next year. Have a little fun. I don't know if you got prepped for this, but there's going to be a little interaction this evening. We're going to be asking you some questions, have you weigh in with us to kind of tell us if what we're seeing is tracks with what you know of Moraine and how your opinions go. And I have to say, this is the first time, I've been doing this a while, I've ever had to follow a robot. That's never happened to me before in my career. So that was kind of interesting that we had that wonderful CPR robot demonstration earlier. So interesting for me. And then we'll quickly walk through the next steps that are coming. So without further ado, really, what is a comprehensive plan? It's a guiding document for the next 10 to 20 years. It's a vision statement. It's a general checklist of the whole community. It shows you, it's a snapshot in time, who you are right now. And we really want to develop a bunch of policies, ideas, visions for where you want to be 20 years from now. Now, a lot of people think, okay, so this plan's good for the next 20 years. That's not how this works. It's really, we want to know what you want to look like in 20 years, but there'll be steps and there'll be recommendations along the way that how you get there over the next 20 years. And obviously you want to check in as a staff and as a council once in a while and say, all right, where are we at, 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road. So it's a roadmap to the next 20 years, but it's not necessarily like the document that, you can't just say, all right, here it is, and we're going to kind of do some of these things the next 20 years. It's really here to help you get there and put things in place and ideas and concepts that get us there. It also can be used to help guide those visions in terms of reacting to development proposals, and I'll talk about that in a couple slides. But really, the most important thing is it's how can we help benchmark and measure our success over those 20 years? Are we doing the things we said we wanted to do to work towards that vision that we decided was a common shared goal? Why is it important? I alluded to this on the previous slide, but essentially, a comprehensive plan helps inform your zoning decisions when I talk about development. Per state statute, that's really where it comes down to. Every comprehensive plan will have a land use map in it. If somebody comes in as a developer and says, I want to put X, Y, Z on this site, you have a plan in place. You can say, well, no, that's not what our community said we wanted here. We wanted that type of use somewhere else in town. So this is that document you can use. It's a little tricky in Ohio when you dig through the state statute. In other states, it's almost like a binding contract. Ohio has actually elevated the zoning ordinance to that status. But when you have this vision in place in that land use map, you can rewrite your zoning ordinance to conform to that. And this is the justification you use to do that. So it's really all about land use, your vision, and making sure you have tools in place to implement that vision. And really, when you work with a developer or something along those lines, or want to do a street project, you have that in place so you can say, nope, here's what the community said they wanted. Here's what our vision is. And it really guides those future decisions as you go through and after the plan is adopted. Typically, kind of a soup to nuts document, covers a wider range of topics: economic development, infrastructure, land use, government and fiscal capacity, if that's what we get through, natural resources, parks and recreation is always a part of this, any historic structures. Now, this isn't necessarily a have to. These are general topics that usually go into these plans, but as we go through the process, as we work with staff, the council, and start engaging the community, some of these will bubble up to the top. And we know through experience that some of these will ultimately be more important than others. Every community is unique in that regard, and every community has unique needs in that regard. So some of these might not even end up on there. One that generally comes up is hazard mitigation. Sometimes that's an issue, sometimes it's not. So we'll work through it. We'll go through it. Farmland preservation, I'm going to assume, I think it's safe to say that's probably not a big concern for the city of Moraine. So we're gonna maybe not have to worry about that sort of a strategy, but that does go into other plans when we're working in more rural communities, for instance. The biggest thing and the most important part to us as we go through our work is it's about the goals, it's about the vision, but this is not our plan. We're in here to help guide and facilitate the plan, but it's the city of Moraine's plan. And what we mean by that is we want to go out and do a lot of public engagement. We want to talk to the community. We're going to have a steering committee made up of local residents, business owners, city staff that help us guide that process. But at the end of the day, it's community driven. We want to put the plan that you have in place. It's your plan, and it's going to be your vision. We're just here to help guide that process. That's really how we view it. We're agnostic when it comes to goals and visions and those things. We lend our technical expertise when we're asked to, but really we want to put on paper and envision and give you that document I mentioned earlier that's going to guide your next 20 years. It's for us, we want to be here, we want to help even after the plan's adopted, but it doesn't do us any good to say, here's what you need to do. That's not how we go about our business. It's all about hearing what you want and us helping articulate that in the plan, in the document itself. There'll be a lot of goals that'll come from that public participation. We're going to identify the assets and things that we want to multiply and really, really kind of focus on. And then we're going to outline steps that we need to get there. So a little bit more detail on that subject and a little timeline. Phase 1, we're just kicking that off now. We've been working with staff since the beginning of the year, starting to download data, working with them to develop lists of names for the ad hoc committees, steering committees. Phase 1 is really all about learning Moraine, getting out there, talking to the community, and doing a lot of data and stuff. Some of the things I'm going to present in a minute. But that's from now to June. In fact, we've already started identifying with staff some potential events that we can be at to get that public engagement. So I think traditionally we would do open houses. Since COVID, virtual is an option, but getting folks, and everyone's so busy these days, it's very hard to get them out at 7 on a Tuesday night. Apparently, unless you're firefighter Connie. I mean, we need her to show up at every event that we could.
Yeah, her family.
The amount of folks that turned out for her were great. But so we've actually adopted a policy of go where the folks are going to be, go where the community is going to be. So we'll come to public events, festivals, all those things, set up a booth, be doing a lot of those. So you'll see us at a lot of those events, and it's not a 9 to 5, 8 to 5 job for us. We come on weekend events. We'll come in the evenings. We don't need to just do this in a set window. That's a big part of our philosophy, and that's a lot of what phase 1 is. It's learning all those things and documenting it and summarizing it in what we call an existing conditions report. Phase 2, we call explore. That's about testing ideas in the proposal scope. It's very specific. We're going to identify some sites that maybe we want to add a little more visual vision to it. We'll have our landscape architects, who are also part of our group, come in, maybe do some fun sketching activities and things like that to help really put some thought and concepts behind what we're hearing to help provide that vision. And ultimately, that ends up in phase 3. We get all this data. We have this community interaction. We do the exploration. We really think through those ideas. And what we call kind of our secret sauce is our critical path strategies, which will be developed in phase 3. You do a plan like this, you're going to get a lot of ideas. You have a lot of priorities, objectives, goal statements, those things. What we like to do at the end of that is boil those down to about the top 10 to 15 and put them into very clear action item, almost granular detailed. Here's how we do this and here's how we get it done. And we will identify funding mechanisms, potential costs if it's like a capital outlay project of some sort. And we'll really dig into maybe even who some of the partner agencies are that can help you with that. But what we want is a roadmap or a playbook for you to start implementing the things that you'll do in the next probably 0 to 5 years. And once you're at that 5 years I mentioned beginning of this presentation, that's when you reassess and say, all right, we got a lot of these done. What are some other goals and things we want to do in this plan? So we really set it up. The best metaphor we've come up with, and I'm working through it a little bit, so bear with me, is we kind of liken it to a parked car on a slope. It's facing downhill. We're really thinking it's in gear, and that's at the end of this process. Your car's there. All you have to do is release the parking brake, and you can keep rolling. A lot of energy will come out of this, a lot of public engagement. It's all about taking that momentum and running forward, and our critical path strategies are all about doing that. That's the whole point of those. And then ultimately in phase 3, once we get to the end of drafting, there'll be the public hearings, the required things, and ultimately adoption. So I'll take a pause there and ask if there's maybe any questions about the overview of the process or how just kind of our methodology or those things. And if not, this is the interactive part. So this is where we're gonna test everyone's knowledge just a little bit. See, we have some facts that we've already started digging up, some things that we found interesting. Just interactive, call out your answers, and it's anybody on the dais or anybody else, if they want to weigh in, please feel free. But we just kind of want to hear what some reactions to this. So we'll jump right in. So the first one is Moraine's population mostly over or under 40 years of age? What do we think? Over. I heard an over. Over.
Yeah, over.
Over.
Mm-hmm.
Over. I'll give a chance back here. Anyone? Under? We got one under. So. Yeah. Matt's already seen me do some of this, so actually, slightly, it's close. It's close.
Yeah.
So I could see why there'd maybe be some answers on both sides, but really, the median age is 35.8 8.7, which when you compare that to the nation or even other Ohio's, it's low. And it kind of surprised us a little bit after our conversations with staff. So, and as
Wow.
Matt and I, Matt was nice enough to give me a quick tour around town this afternoon. We were looking around going, where are they? Because we
Yeah.
don't hear about it a lot.
We're
So
gonna be
that's
looking for them too.
Really?
Got more of them in my neighborhood.
Yep. So we can move on to the next one. Does Moraine have more or less renter occupied housing units than nearby communities?
Less.
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 I heard less or less. It sounds, that one was
Yeah.
quick. Everybody was pretty sure about that one. You are correct. So
Yeah.
it's some communities in the area or Dayton, Ohio, but really, yeah, pretty much more than definitely other communities. The only one on here that's more is Ohio, but that's the whole state. So that's a lot of rural land and other things in there. But
Right.
you're not far from the statewide percentage. So definitely a lot of owner occupied homes here in Moraine, which is, there's no good or right answer to that balance per se, but it's nice to know that you have investment in the community. People want to live here and own homes here. That's always important.
Right.
So has the percent of single family detached homes, we're talking about physical built units, gone up or down since 2010? What do we think?
Up.
So more single family now than we did.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah, you guys are good. You guys are good. That was quick. It has. A little bit.
We just had 3 new housing developments.
Yeah. Yep. And that's
City driven.
yep.
Yeah.
That means we know our community, which is good because a lot of our work and a lot of what we do here is we're going to hear a lot from the community. We like to put data to that, like we're doing right now, and say, yeah, you guys, we're pretty right. And it's, every once in a while you get surprised, kind of like the age one.
Yeah.
The age one. So that's a lot of our work is this process. It's hearing the community, learning what we can from those engagement efforts, and then really kind of trying to put some data to it to help us come up with our policy directions. So we got a couple more of these. Were the majority of homes in Moraine built before or after 2000?
Before.
Before. Yeah, a lot actually. Yeah, 89% of all the housing stock was built in Moraine before the year 2000. But driving around today, I was a little curious about the 2 and 3% at the bottom of this chart, and why single family went up. And then when we were driving around, I saw why. You got these great new, brand new single family subdivisions.
Yep.
So that's pretty much all single family development since 2010,
Mhm.
which is obviously there's a lot of that going on in the country right now too. But it's great. It's great to see that. It's great to see it physically, in my mind, manifest what I'm seeing in the data. So it was really great to see that in person. That one, hopefully you didn't see that. It got jumped too much, but are there less people working in Moraine today than there were in 2010? What do we think? And if you saw the number pop up, because my finger hit it twice, I
Oh, I
apologize.
didn't.
The truck.
That went out in 2007 though.
Yeah. GM.
This is a bit of a trick question, I won't lie, because I purposely picked 2010 instead of 2007-8.
I'd say there's more.
There's more? More? General agreement? No?
More.
Okay, I thought I saw maybe it's a dissenter somewhere. Yep, it's gone up, which to me is great. You think of the events of 07, 08, Moraine has recovered a lot of those jobs and then surpassed it. I mean,
Yes.
this 13,000 might not be more than when GM was here.
17,000.
Right.
Yeah, but at least you're certainly recovering a lot of those jobs that were lost in that
Thanks to
event. You're on the right path, which is it's good to see.
So it's a team effort.
Well, I think it's great though. I mean, whoever, a team effort, all those things. It's great that it's happening, and here's proof positive. Then we got one last one. More than 70% of employees in Moraine, so we're talking people that work in Moraine-based businesses. Do they live in Moraine or not live in Moraine? What do we
They
think?
do
Do
not.
not.
live in
They do
Moraine.
not.
Do not.
It's a
Yeah,
main
you-
traffic.
I gotta say, you guys really know your town because you're hitting these almost out of the park. And I suspected that too. The number though, the percent actually surprised me. 98% of employees at Moraine businesses do not live in town. That was that struck me as that's a really high number.
Huh.
And the other part of this I put on the slide that was interesting is 91% of the people that do live in Moraine don't work in town. So you're almost kind of ships passing in the night during the commute
Yeah.
hours. So.
Mhm.
So that was really that the second one was what I found more interesting. I assumed with
Yeah.
all these employers here that's where most folks that live in town are working, but that's not what the data showed me. So,
Wow.
so that was just a quick, kind of snapshot. We're just getting into the process of how we go about our work, how we do the process, the things we're looking at. It's going to be a lot more data. That existing conditions report is almost a snapshot / encyclopedia of all things marine when we get to the end of that process. But this is what we're doing. And then we're going to go out to the community, have those engagement efforts and really try to see if the data bears out the perception or not. I mean, seemed like tonight, a lot of folks knew exactly what's happening in marine. That's great. That means your finger's on the pulse, which ultimately leads us to, I think, a better product at the end of the day is when we have that kind of knowledge base, we can really dig into the issues and say, all right, here's the vision steps we need to get there. So anything other than the age surprise you, or did the age surprise you?
The age.
Yeah.
The age?
Surprised
It did me too. But yeah, when Matt and I went over this about a week ago, it surprised us a little too. And I was, wow, that's not what I expected. So,
No.
I mean, even just nationally when we do it. So anything else? Any other questions? Any other thoughts on that or the process? Awesome.
Are your data points coming from 2020 census, or sometimes they provide updates annually? Where are you pulling all that?
Yeah, so our goal is always to use the most recent data source. Some of these numbers are 2020 census. Some of them are American Community Survey numbers, the 5-year updates. Some of them, we pay a data service through Esri to download some of this data because they will do their own projections and updates as well and go out and do some polling. So it's kind of a mixture of all these. Some of it's Bureau of Labor Statistics data. It just depends on which data set we're talking about. But we use anywhere from 6 to 10 different data sources as we go through this process. So most of what we did tonight, though, is census data, 2020 census data. So the next steps is we're going to keep working with the city's project team. We're going to collect and analyze the data over the next few months. Usually, beginning of the process, we'd like to start rolling out some of the public engagement activities, but this time of year, it's very hard to do that. It's winter. There's not great weather. So working with staff, we're going to be very data centric the next couple of months, get all the data downloaded, write it up, summarize it, put all of our graphics together, and then take that to the community and start using that for engagement efforts. And we've targeted a few even as early as April to start doing that. And sometime between now and then, we'll be doing an online survey. Really, anything we can do to help push that out is great. Part of our methodology is to actually pay for ad placement on Facebook or in social media to make sure it gets out to folks, but always sharing those things, reusing them, getting them out through all of our shared efforts is always a big help. After that, what we're doing now is setting up the ad hoc committee. That's a group of volunteers, business owners I mentioned earlier. We'll generally meet about 5 times throughout the course of the process. They're our sounding board. They're kind of our pulse to make sure, quite frankly, we don't want to put something out there that's not what the community wants, and that group's really there to help us determine that. So if there's an idea, and it's happened to me in these projects where we put out, we're really jazzed about it, and we put it, and we present it to that group, and they're just like, no, I don't think so. That's not going to work here in our community. We say, all right, that's great. We don't take any offense to that. That's why we have that group, to make sure we're going to do what works for you. So we're setting that up now. We'll have that first meeting probably the next time we're in town, when we'll be doing a lot of what we call stakeholder meetings, which is 1 hour kind of interview. If interview is not the right word, conversations with sort of collections of folks like commercial brokers, residents, business owners, those things, to get a real deep dive into those kind of subject matters. We'll be looking at sort of the March timeframe for that. And then the conversations, and then we'll be doing the online survey. So these are the immediate next steps. Obviously, as we go through the process, there'll be a lot more steps to follow, but that's what we'll be working on probably the next 2 to 3 months. With that, I will turn it over and see if there's any other questions for me. And thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity to come and kind of have this overview tonight, have a little fun looking at some data. Well, I'm a planner. I think data's fun. Maybe it's not everybody's version of fun, but I appreciate everyone's attention and questions. So.
Matt, could you tell them a little bit about the time frame when we would expect to have the final product?
Yes, I think I can go back
That
a couple
was in
slides just to help
December.
with the visualization, but it's approximately a 12-month process, maybe 13 when we have the adoption. So we'll be starting now. We'll be hoping have pretty much everything done by the end of the year, and then generally beginning of next year, it'll probably be more the public hearing process than that. But the plan will be written in principle by end of the year. and then we have the formal kind of approval step to go through.
We plan, take into account changes in technology we may face in the future.
We always are looking at those things and what people are doing to help address those things. I think the one Matt and I talked about that comes to the top of mind is automation. We know that that's something that's going to be impacting the workforce. So what we'll do is account for that. We'll think through that a little bit, look at resources and things that are already in the community to help with training and those sorts of things. In particular, if that's a concern we hear a lot, from the community, that's something we'll definitely do a deep dive into.
Well, most of us are older and we remember pre-cell phone eras, and the phone used to be attached to the wall and other changes in cars and so forth. And I have some concern that we have our options open to bring more young families and so forth into the city, that we accommodate any infrastructure we might need.
Yep. And I think the last part of that is the most, attracting families, residential growth, all those things. It comes down to a couple things. Technology is one of them. In particular, broadband is important, especially for young folks. My son's 13. He literally lays in his bed all night on his phone. I'm like, we have these big TVs and a couch, right? You don't have to do that, but that's what he does. So that's what. And then something we were talking about looking around town earlier is all the trails that are already here. That's a great amenity.
Mhm.
Quality of life is becoming a bigger and bigger part of business attraction, residential attraction. So I think a lot of the how to attract folks to live here is going to focus on those issues, those types of issues. But definitely something we hear a lot, definitely something we'll be digging into throughout the process. All right, well, that I will. Is there any other questions? All right, well, thank you. I appreciate your time, everybody. this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good presentation.
Is there anything we need to do on this? I believe it's already done.
Yeah, it was just a presentation to kind of kick the process off.
Okay. Start back here. I'll pick on the police department.
I have no report, ma'am. Thank you.
Fire department,
No report, ma'am. Thank you.
Parks and Rec,
No report, ma'am. Thank you.
always have a report. Okay, street department,
No report, ma'am. Thank you.
zoning,
No report, ma'am. Thank you.
community development.
No report as such. I just wanted to thank you for listening to the presentation. Wanted to thank Matt and the folks from American Structure Point for coming. And I would just add in that as we went through the process of looking at the different companies, the entities that wanted to do the plan for us and work with us, there were a couple of things that stuck out to me about American Structure Point. And so I just wanted to let you know that I think the fact that they are from Indianapolis, they're a good Midwestern type of company, was a strong indicator that they were somebody we wanted to work with. We had folks from pretty far away coming. We also had a lot of folks that were very close to us, and I think they are far enough away to be outside observers and bringing in some good ideas. They are a large enough company that they had a lot of experience, and so you heard the word data. Very, very important that I thought that they were going to be data driven. They're going to be facts and figures and ideas that are going to come out of that would be driven from their experiences. And I know very important to council that when they do bring ideas, that one of the things that they're going to be backing up those concepts and ideas with is case studies, so that other folks like Moraine, folks from the Midwest and areas, there's going to be examples of, here are 2 or 3 examples of what can be done if we follow that pathway. So it's going to be a great experience. I've been through this a couple of times. It's going to be a fun time. We are going to engage a lot of folks out there. So I've talked with a couple of you. Yeah, we're going to be making phone calls and we're going to be getting out there. I think the first time you will see them will be at the Easter egg event that's coming up here in just a couple of months. So look forward to working with them. And again, appreciate the time that you gave them. Thanks.
Clerk of Council.
I just want to thank council for the birthday card. That's all.
City manager,
I have, I have nothing. Thank you.
law director,
No, ma'am, thank you.
finance director,
No report, thank you.
mayor,
No report, thank you.
Mr. Burchett,
No report. Thank you.
Mr. Dougherty,
No report. Thank you.
Mr. Miller,
No report. Thank you.
Mrs. Witt.
The only thing I think when we're finished with, when we get to the end of Terry, we should sing happy birthday to Amy. Tomorrow's her birthday. I mean, we need to embarrass her.
You working tomorrow, Amy?
Half day.
Half day.
Mrs. Allen?
No report, thank you.
I have no report, so at this time, we will adjourn to executive session with no business to follow.
Let's sing
At
happy birthday
7:18.
first.
Okay. Ready?
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday.